Welcome back to The Wandering Naturalist. My name is Brandon, he, him.
And this is Angela, she, her.
And last time we talked to Dr. Michael Joyce about research he is doing in Three Rivers Parks about fishers. Today we are joined by Dr. Roger Powell, Professor Emeritus at North Carolina State University. He has 50 years researching how limiting resources affect animals. And when we talk to people, we are told he is one of the leading experts on fishers. We basically had to have him on the podcast.
Yeah, everyone recommended Roger big time.
Yeah, they said, like, out of all the guests, email him. So welcome, Dr. Powell. Can you tell us a little about yourself?
Okay, my name is Roger Powell, he, him. And as you noted, I'm Professor Emeritus at North Carolina State University, which is not the kind of place where one would go to study fishers directly. Fishers did used to be in the Southern Appalachians in far western North Carolina. But I went there because it was a good job that gave me opportunities to teach and to do research. My major interests are in the area of overlap between animal behavior, animal ecology, and evolution.
You do have Minnesota ties, though, correct?
Oh, yes, and I live in Minnesota right now. My wife and I live just outside of Ely, which is one of the perks of being Professor Emeritus. I can still teach and do research through the university, but I can live wherever I want to.
And by Ely is an amazing place to live.
Oh, we love it.
I was really intrigued when I was reading some of your papers and doing some research on you about your research on limiting factors. Can you explain what limiting factors are?
Limiting resources or limiting factors are what ultimately limit a population. So it might be food, or it might be something like reproductive den sites, which appears to be the case for fishers. Or it could be something related to habitat that facilitates escaping predators or finding food. So diverse limiting resources exist for different critters.
So these are the things that keep the population from just growing and growing and growing. They kind of keep the population confined to a certain amount.
That's right, yes.
So you mentioned den sites for fishers. You know, if they don't have enough den sites, their population can't grow. Are there any other limiting resources or limiting factors for fishers?
Well, food would be another limiting resource, and predators, or
Okay.
a predator avoidance being the actual resource. And old growth forests have very complex structure, not just big trees, but they have patches that are younger. They have a lot of times debris on the ground, fallen trees, branches, and rough topography, and that facilitates being able to capture some prey. And so the resources for fishers are diverse. Now, I noted that you mentioned old growth forests or old forests, and coming back to the limiting reproductive den sites. For reasons we do not understand, female fishers only produce kits in cavities in trees or standing snags. That's a dead tree. They don't give birth in hollow logs. They don't give birth in holes in the ground or little caves. Nobody knows why that is, but that is an important characteristic of fishers. In northern Minnesota up here, Michael noted that fisher population has gone down. On private forests up here, the rotation rate for logging is about 40 years. And even for the Forest Service, the rotation rate for logging is 70 to 80 years. Now, it takes 75 to 100 years for most of the trees up here to start forming cavities where branches are broken off and rot goes into the heartwood. Those are the kinds of cavities that fishers use for giving birth. And if the rotation rates are so fast that the trees don't form cavities, that's going to limit fisher populations.
That makes sense because as humans, no matter where we are, we generally don't like to tolerate dead trees being around, snags being around. There's this idea that they're
Or
dangerous.
ugly
And then
looking.
I know when I worked in northern Minnesota, I was really surprised by the logging practices. I think, yeah, driving by, there'd be like this strip of forest on the side of the highways where you would see the forest, but then you could see on the other side where they would just be kind of cutting the entire area. So if you're doing that, if you're not allowing the trees to get old enough, yeah, there would be no homes for the fishers. They'd really be limited to maybe, some national parks, some state parks, things like that, finding those homes. Does that tie into what you call a fitness landscape?
It does. A fitness landscape is a way of looking at a landscape not by what what habitats are there, what trees or different types of habitat formations, open areas, things like that. It's one would map the area by how much each area can contribute to the fitness or the potential population growth of of the animals that live of individual animals that live there. So a given landscape that might have, a stand of old growth pine and nearby a clear cut, and in another place a clear cut that is growing up. It's been there for 10 or 20 years and it's got a lot of aspen and birch on it. A fitness landscape doesn't look at the description of the habitat, it looks at how much can that old growth forest contribute to fisher reproduction and survival, and the clear cut and the birch aspen stand. So it's a different way of thinking about forests than thinking of the habitat the way we see it.
It goes into one of my favorite misconceptions too, where we talk about survival of the fittest, and we often think that means the physically strongest. And in fact, survival of the fittest really refers to who's going to have the most offspring that'll survive and then have offspring that will have offspring.
I have to
Yeah,
interrupt
yeah.
here
Okay.
because survival of the fittest is an expression that Darwin did not come up with. Ernst Haeckel
Yes.
did, and Darwin accepted it. But if you look at how ev- evolution by natural selection works, it's actually reproduction of the fittest that is the most important.
Yes. No, I agree with that
I
100%.
can't
And I
even
know
remember what
whenever,
episode that was we went into it, but we went into it.
yeah, it's one of my biggest pet peeves, especially when it's used to
Oh, it's used.
justify
It's kind of like
all these things
it's when
incorrectly.
people say literally all the time. It's like kind of one of those cringes where you're just like,
I think
really?
it's worse than that. I think it's
It's
worse. It's the
true.
same as like, oh, it's dog eat dogs, it's survival of the fittest, and I think it can have a lot of negative consequences because people don't understand
Yeah,
it.
I
So,
wanted to ask the question
yeah,
because I wanted to hold us accountable. When we talked about the movement of how fishers move, I know you had put in the comments to explain a bit more of how they move in snow. Because I assumed, I believe somewhere I had read that they move differently in snow so that they don't break through. I know their feet are specialized to that. But was there anything you wanted to add and clarify for our listeners?
Well, snow is not always snow at the same everywhere. It really differs. Up here, the top layer is light and fluffy, but we got a crust underneath that.
Yeah.
And the fishers can run on that crust with their typical bounding just as they do on firm soil. And if the snow is the kind of snow that packs and can hold a fair load, again, they'll bound on that. But if it's all fluffy, then they're sort of stuck and they'll either push through it or they might be able to walk on top of it. So it really depends on the snow conditions.
Well, I just think it's such a cool adaptation for them, being if they are in more northern Minnesota. I wonder how snowpack will affect them. Do you think that is one thing? I mean, again, this is being recorded when it's winter time and being played at a different time. But right here in the metro, we don't got like an inch of snow. We got nothing.
Well, fishers originally, before European colonization, even lived as far south as northern Iowa. They are actually not a conifer forest animal. They're an animal of mixed forests, and the best habitats are a mix that has maybe a little bit more deciduous than conifer, but they can live in 100% conifer forest, and they can live in 100% deciduous. And generally, that affects the densities of the fissures.
That kind of leads me to the other thing that I was curious about, because you and I talked a lot about fitness landscapes, and it almost feels like fitness landscapes are a reversal of the idea that all forests lead to a climax or like the ultimate state of a forest. I think like in our area, we often think of a maple basswood forest being what all forests want to become. Northern Minnesota probably be, we think of a red pine or a white pine forest being the ultimate forest. But if we're talking about a fitness landscape being a thing where you need multiple kinds of habitats, multiple resources for a fisher to truly reproduce or other animals, do forests actually become climax forests? Or is it more accurate to say they're in a constant state of change with disruptions causing a diversity of the successional states from early to old growth? And does that create higher diversity?
There, you just confused two terms:
I did. Excellent.
old growth and climax forest. Those work differently. The way ecological succession works in a given area with the soil conditions and the climate conditions, when you've got an opening, there is sort of a predictable succession of vegetation. And if it's not interrupted, it will go to a climax condition that will then stay roughly the same until something interrupts it and sets it back to an earlier stage. Now, that climax forest, well, up here where we are, depending on the soil conditions, it could very well be a mixed white pine, red pine forest, or it might end up being a spruce fir forest. An old growth forest is a forest that has not been extremely altered by European man. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And an old growth forest is actually a patchy forest that has some patches that are early succession, some that are middle succession, some that are late succession, some that are late succession that have had ground floor fires to make them different than forests that haven't. And so an old growth is a mixture of a lot of things that have gone through natural processes that make different stages of succession within the forest. And the climax is just those stands that haven't been interrupted for a long time.
Okay. So then old growth forest probably doesn't exist all that much anymore, does it?
No, it doesn't.
No, yeah.
There are some places, but not very many.
I was hoping, again, I don't know, I didn't put my clock in front of me, which I'm kind of glad I didn't. I'm hoping we have more time to ask Roger about. I started reading the book. I got this from my colleague. Again, I don't have many mammal books on my shelf, but he was like, you have Roger on? He's like, you've got to read his book. And I'm so jealous. So he's jealous that I'm getting this time with you right now. So I'm rubbing it in, Stephen. But I was really moved by reading the intro to this about where you first started studying fishers, where you were actually raising kits in captivity, and there was 2 of them. And I'm wondering if you can just share a little bit more about what that research was, because was it something about their energy and metabolism and why would you have to raise them in captivity?
It's pretty much impossible to get wild fishers to accept being around people. I expect that if somebody is able to devote just a tremendous amount of time, he or she could probably get fishers to accept having that person watch them. But getting them to agree to run on a treadmill.
Yeah, this is where I was like, excuse me, and I had to reread it again. You thought this was possible, and you did it.
Well, I had to hand raise the fisher kits.
Mm-hmm.
so that when they reached adult size, I could basically force them to run on a treadmill. And the only way I could do that was to put a big box on top of the treadmill so that they couldn't just jump off, which I tried at first to train them on the treadmill, and they did just jump off. but but
Nobody likes a treadmill.
but in the box, they would run for me, and then I could measure their metabolic rates at different running speeds. Now, then I could transfer that back to the field by tracking fishers to see how far they went and how much time they spent during that period of foraging when they were moving through the woods. And then from that, I could estimate their energy requirements and their food requirements. How many porcupines they had to eat, how many squirrels they had to eat during a period of time, and how they could best balance their diets. I did get to watch a female fisher attacking a porcupine.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just gonna say.
And that was amazing. And it is true. She aimed at the face and repeatedly bit the face. A fisher has to run around a porcupine to try to get access to the porcupine's face. The porcupine just doesn't just stand there and wait.
Mm-hmm.
And the porcupine is in the middle. So it just rotates around, and it's
spinning.
And it's much easier for the porcupine to turn its face away than it is for the fisher to get in front of it. So for an experienced fisher, geez, a kill site is amazing. It's about 10 meters across, so it's about 30 feet, 10 yards in diameter, with all sorts of packed down snow. There's urine, there's blood, there are porcupine quills on the ground. At one site, I could see where a porcupine had put its face between, as you get to the bottom of the tree, the roots go out.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are places where there's a little gap, like a little cave for a face, and a porcupine would put its face in there. And a porcupine with its face protected is a safe porcupine. A fisher can't kill it. But the fisher would go up the tree and come down head first. And then it could get to the top of the porcupine's head and force it back away from the tree. A kill site is just an amazing thing to see. But once a fisher does kill a porcupine, it's got food for a week or more.
Yeah, it knows.
One of the real cool things about fishers is that they are specialists, but they're flexible. A fisher is on the same face-to-face level with a porcupine. So the fisher has access to the face. Other predators tend to come down from the top.
And they
And
lose.
the standard predator kill bite is a bite to the back of the neck or head. And I've seen bobcats and coyotes, dead ones, faces just full of quills. But fishers are right on the spot to be able to bite the face. They have unique behaviors. Nobody else has this circle and bite the face behavior for porcupines. The evidence is that when pumas kill porcupines, they whack them in the face with a paw.
Little sacrificial there, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true, but they have not evolved the behavior of biting the face until the porcupine is basically unable to defend itself. Then they do turn it over, and when they eat, they start at the neck and the chest to go into the good stuff first. So it is true, when you find a dead porcupine, you can find it with its heart and lungs eaten out, and it looks as though it's been turned over. And it actually probably was killed by the fisher starting to eat it.
Poor porcupines. We're going to have to do like a retaliation porcupine podcast now, aren't we?
They're not really in our parks, though.
Are really cool. At the time when my wife and I were getting up during the middle of the night to bottle feed 2 baby fishers, we also had a baby porcupine.
Oh, I didn't. That wasn't in the book.
it would come out from its box and sort of walk over. And it's really hard while you've got a baby fisher in one hand
And
and
a
a little bottle in
porcupine.
another hand,
This
and
is
you've got
so
a porcupine.
confusing.
You've got a porcupine wrapped around your ankle, starting to gnaw on your ankle bone. And they're born with teeth. They can eat solid food,
Pretty quick.
soft, solid food when they're born. Now they do nurse, and they nurse for a long time. So that was fun. And the porcupine was really fun to have.
Now, what were the two names of those fishers?
Thacho and Uskul.
Yeah, I loved those names. No, I highly recommend anyone they can. We'll post this. This is a great read. Lots of heavy detail in there too, so you can go as deep as you want or light as you want. Just really fantastic to read. And what insight you must have gained by raising these fishers so closely.
It was tremendous.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
that's just so interesting to share and to put into your research and for it to continue forward.
The book is out of print, unfortunately.
Ooh, this is a
And-
collector's then.
It is, and I've been told that used ones are expensive.
Oh, we're holding on to it.
I've thought about
Reprinting?
writing. Well, no, not reprinting, because so much new research has been done
Oh,
since
true.
that came
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
So I thought about updating it, but that's a project I haven't gotten to.
Yeah, that might take some time, but we could work with Michael and get something going there maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm wondering, before we end, do you have any advice for listeners interested in entering a scientific field?
One way to enter it is through citizen science and get an idea of the different types of science that are available. It's also a good idea to do a lot of reading. If you go to college, sample as much as you can. Don't decide when you're a freshman what your major is going to be. Don't decide until you've tried all sorts of things. At college, there is more knowledge and wisdom available than you'll ever find anyplace else. And all you have to do is knock on a door and start asking questions. And that's really a good way to figure out if you're interested in science at all. And if you are, what areas of science interest you? If you decide to go on to graduate school, you want to try to find a school that has lots of opportunities in the areas that interest you, and then also find an advisor that seems to be a good person with whom you would get along.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. Advisors make a huge difference.
I did field research on black bears in the southern Appalachians for well over 20 years. And for many of those years, I had Earthwatch volunteers helping with the project. So we would have people out in the woods checking bear traps, helping us to handle trapped bears, and helping us do radio telemetry, hiking into the woods to sample vegetation and foods for the bears. And some of those folks have gone on to do work in science, and others have not. I also teach at a field station that is run by Coe College. It's the Coe College Wilderness Field Station, and it's an undergraduate field station located basically on the edge of the Boundary Waters. And students have 4 weeks of being inundated with particular ecological topics. And going to a field station is another good way to find out if field research is exciting. And those don't just have ecology and behavior courses, there are geology courses, there are other courses like that at field stations.
So many options to
Well-
explore. I feel pretty fortunate in Minnesota too. Just like we shared on the wildlife diseases, I was able to go out and do like CWD stuff. And some of those things would really cement your future of knowing what you're passionate about and what you enjoy. So that's wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Roger, for joining us. I'm looking forward to reading more and admiring fishers even further now.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Fishers are animals that have fascinated me since I first learned about them from when I was in Minnesota. I think just this relatively large predator descending the tree head first, loping through the snow. It's an image that gripped my imagination. I think I've always loved the northwards of Minnesota, and just picturing this fisher bounding through snow flying. It's like, to me, it's just this iconic image of the North. And then seeing a fisher in Creek Park Reserve, it was really the fulfillment of a 15-year dream. I never saw when I worked at Voyageurs National Park. I always really wanted to. So seeing him at Creek Park Reserve, it was so exciting. And I hope I get to see him again on my wanderings through the park. What about you, Angela?
Yeah, I feel like there were so many things dispelled for me too that, again, I think I hear when Michael touched about how people think of fishers as so ferocious and mean, and it makes me think too to like be careful on the words we use when describing wildlife, how important that is, how the public perceives them. Also, even just getting deeper into it with Roger about the dynamics of forest, climax versus old growth, timber harvest. And again, that maybe fishers, if they were as far as south as Iowa, they really weren't this like just coniferous forest thing. So there's so much to dig into each species and learn and challenge yourself of what is their actual habitat needs and how is that changing over time. So again, a really cool thing to not just reserve for the north. It's here in the metro area and going further south. And that Three Rivers gets to be a part of that research because of our amazing volunteers that do camera trapping that have allowed us to confirm and coordinate this research, I think is another cool shout out that we should do. And all the funding that makes it possible to do some of this research.
Absolutely. It's keep your eyes open as you walk through our parks. See if you can find a fisher. They really are beautiful and amazing. Thanks to Dr. Michael Joyce for talking to us today about his research on fishers in Three Rivers Parks and the metro area. Thanks to Dr. Powell for sharing all of the knowledge he's accumulated about fishers and talking to us about what is their place in the habitat, what is their fitness landscape. We really appreciate them sharing their knowledge with us today. If you want to learn more about fishers, go to our Facebook page or Instagram, the Wandering Naturalist Podcast of Three Rivers Park District, and type in the series title, Fisher Facts. As we always say, we don't have enough time to cover everything, but we can show some really cool stuff on social media. I know there's just so much. I also like how your Fisher Facts ties in really well with like the Marvel superhero
and
comic names.
And
Angela.
F.
Good job.
And it's more Fs. I didn't even I scrambled for a quick title and that's what I came up with, folks.
What you're saying is today's episode was brought to us by the letter F.
Yes. We need to play does Sesame Street have some music we can use for that?
I think it might. Well, we'll see if we get Elmo to do it for us.
Okay, I like it. You can also give us feedback, ask questions, see where Brandon and I may be wandering and doing in-person events in the parks. You can always email us, wanderingnaturalist@threeriversparks.org. Please leave us a review. Share if this Fisher episode spoke to you. Share that. Share it out. Get other people excited about fishers. And then, it helps our podcast reach more people. Your reviews and shares are very important. So thank you, everyone, for doing that. A special thanks to Tom Nisley for arranging interviews, Monica Roshwater for guest outreach, Emily Thompson for guest support. And a shout out always to our amazing social media team for keeping things going for the entire month, giving you more resources.
We hope you enjoyed learning with us today. Now that you know, what will you do in your wanderings?